The idea of chamber in music pops up probably for the first time in the 17th century. We start to find positions in noble households denoted as musico da camera, a musician who is employed to write music and perform it for the appreciation of the rich and well-heeled individual who's sponsoring it. So we see wherever the money is to be found, we see these great offerings of chamber music works. At first, maybe lyric pieces like the cantata da camera, something that would be sung in a room at home. But as the violin became more and more popular, you start to find these works becoming more and more instrumental, so the sonata da camera, as opposed, by the way, to the sonata da chiesa, which would be performed in church. So now, in the appreciation of music, we have three important venues. We have the church, we have the theatre, and then we have one's own castle. And this addition to the performance space of music is really important for a number of reasons. First of all, wherever the money was, there was the opportunity for a whole new canon of composition. And secondly, we have the growth of an amateur community in all senses, people who appreciate, both as listeners and crucially as performers. Goethe once commented that when he was at a Beethoven performance, some quartets, that it was like listening to the conversation, a rational conversation between four people. So that idea of intimacy and engagement in really quite an informal way is absolutely at the heart of the chamber ethos. And look at what happened. In Italy, under the great patronage of Cardinal Ottoboni, you have Arcangelo Corelli. He doesn't just write a few pieces. He creates a whole new form which influences successive generations and crosses continents. You have, in Elizabeth I, you have great lute song and a tradition of text setting that goes through Purcell and beyond. In France, Louis XIV, probably the most fashionable, the most imitated monarch in all time, had his own maître de la musique de la chambre du roi. He had his very own chamber musician. What an electrifying impulse that would be for people appreciating and writing music to have that kind of endorsement. So wherever there is money and wherever there's patronage, you have this fantastic offering of intimate works to be appreciated in that domestic space and a whole amateur, in the best sense of the word, community around them. So how do we put the word chamber with the word orchestra, and what does it mean when we do it? Well, we first started to see in Great Britain the notion of chamber with orchestra, I suppose, in the mid-20th century, when the English Chamber Orchestra was formed in 1949 and it took on its current title in 1960, and another very notable ensemble, the Academy of St Martin in the Fields, in 1959 under Neville Marriner. Now, the ambition, I think, of both of those ensembles was to recover a different kind of relationship where you can, in theory, have as many violins and violas and cellos and double basses as you like on stage, and some big symphony orchestras have very many. But the reality is that if you want to play the Mozart Symphony 40 in G minor, you're going to have one flute, two oboes, two clarinets and two bassoons. Now, you get a different sound if you accompany them with 28 violins than if you accompany them with 18. And that gives you an insight into what the chamber experience is all about. It's about ratio of sound. Remember, of course, that love and appreciation, the intimacy, we've not forgotten that. Smaller forces still have an appeal to smaller space and more direct. And one more thing, think about Goethe and that rational conversation. When you reduce forces to that ever so slightly smaller scale, there is a greater potential for that chamber instinct, each individual player as if they're in a room with each other, relaxing, communicating with each other and building the music. And that instinctive collective ethos is also the holy grail of the chamber orchestra. And that's what we try and do every day with the OAE.